There is one financial mistake almost everyone makes. A mistake so silent, so common, so normalized, that it destroys more wealth than bad investments, low income, or inflation ever could. And the worst part? You don't even realize you're doing it. This blunder creeps into your habits, your identity, your spending, your ego, until you can't tell the difference between what you want and what the world conditioned you to want. Today, we expose the trap keeping millions broke, and once you see it, you will never fall for it again. Comfort feels good. Comfort feels safe. Comfort feels earned. But here's the truth nobody wants to hear. Comfort is not progress. Comfort pretends to be progress. Comfort dresses up like progress. But comfort does not move your life forward. Progress has weight. Progress has friction. Progress has resistance. Comfort avoids all three. And that's why comfort tricks millions of people into believing they're winning while their life is quietly sliding backward. You get a raise, and suddenly you think you've improved. You buy something new, and suddenly you think you've evolved. You upgrade your lifestyle, and suddenly you think you're leveling up. But here is the brutal truth you came here to hear. You didn't rise, your expenses rose. You didn't win, your comfort won. You didn't progress, you inflated. And inflation is not growth. Inflation is not discipline. Inflation is not strategy. Inflation is the easiest way to look successful without becoming successful. Most people don't want progress. Most people want a feeling that mimics progress, a shot of dopamine, a moment of relief, a reward that has nothing to do with reality. Because real progress demands discomfort. Real progress demands friction. Real progress demands that you choose discipline over upgrades again and again, long after your emotions are begging you to stop. You have a choice, and most people make the wrong one. They choose the illusion. They choose the short-term hit. They choose the thing that makes them feel successful instead of the thing that becomes successful. Let's make this real. You get a salary increase. What happens? You should save the difference. You should invest the difference. You should use the increase to build a firewall between you and financial stress. But that's not what happens. What happens is simple. The car gets nicer. The apartment gets bigger. The meals get more expensive. The habits get more comfortable. And suddenly, the raise didn't raise you. It only raised your lifestyle. You didn't improve your life. You inflated your obligations. That's the difference between comfort and progress. Comfort adds weight to your life. Progress removes it. Comfort expands your costs. Progress expands your capabilities. Comfort gives you the illusion of safety. Progress creates safety. That's the key. Most people don't track these differences. They don't monitor the shift. They assume that if they're working harder and spending more, they must be moving forward. But here's the truth. You don't need their permission to change your path. You don't need the world to approve your discipline. You don't need social validation to make the quiet choices that build real wealth. You need one thing, a decision. A decision to stop rewarding yourself for survival. A decision to stop celebrating comfort as if it's an achievement. A decision to stop pretending that spending more is the same as becoming more. Comfort is emotional. Progress is structural. And most people live emotionally, not structurally. That's why they collapse under pressure. That's why they panic during financial stress. That's why their life looks stable from the outside, but chaotic from the inside. Because comfort builds a lifestyle you can't maintain. Progress builds a foundation you can't break. Let's break the illusion even further. Comfort says you deserve something new. Progress says you deserve something lasting. Comfort says you worked hard, reward yourself. Progress says you worked hard, build something. Comfort says nobody will respect you if you don't look successful. Progress says your bank account doesn't care who respects you. Comfort shouts. Progress whispers. Comfort is loud and addictive. Progress is quiet and disciplined. Comfort asks for your emotions. Progress demands your decisions. You have a choice, and here's where the trap tightens. Every time you choose comfort, comfort becomes easier to choose next time. Every time you say, "I'll save later," saving becomes harder later. Every time you upgrade your lifestyle, you upgrade your dependence on that lifestyle. Soon enough, your comfort becomes your owner. Your comfort becomes your obligation. Your comfort becomes your cage. And you built it, brick by brick, upgrade by upgrade, justification by justification. Meanwhile, progress was waiting for you. Quiet, patient, available, but ignored. Most people don't realize they're falling for the financial blunder because it feels good, because it feels harmless, because it feels earned. And that is why this chapter matters, because your feelings are not your strategy. Your emotions are not your plan. Your impulses are not your blueprint. It's not about comfort, it's about discipline. Discipline is the enemy of lifestyle inflation. Discipline is the enemy of ego spending. Discipline is the enemy of the financial blunders keeping you stuck. Discipline is also the thing you've been avoiding, not because you can't do it, but because comfort gave you an easier option. The option to look successful instead of becoming successful. The option to feel rich instead of being rich. The option to upgrade your life instead of upgrading your future. But now the illusion is broken. Now you can see the difference. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Comfort is not progress. Comfort is the replacement for progress. And the moment you understand that, you regain control over your financial life. Hold that thought, because now that you've seen how comfort traps you, we move to the next and far more dangerous blunder hiding in plain sight. The most dangerous financial trap is never the one that looks dangerous. It's the one that looks harmless, the one that feels reasonable, the one you convince yourself you deserve. This trap doesn't announce itself. It doesn't come with flashing warnings. It comes quietly, disguised as small decisions, tiny upgrades, little comforts that whisper, "You're doing better now. Treat yourself. You've earned this. You're leveling up." But here is the truth you don't want to face. Lifestyle inflation is the silent killer of wealth. Not because it happens fast, but because it happens slowly. So slowly that you normalize it before you realize it's happening at all. That's what makes it deadly. Lifestyle inflation doesn't drain your bank account in one day. It drains your future one habit at a time, one tiny decision at a time, one harmless upgrade at a time. You get a raise, your expenses rise with it. You earn more money, your lifestyle expands to swallow it. You level up financially, your comfort level upgrades even faster. And eventually, you're back where you started. Stressed, overextended, stretched thin, barely saving, barely breathing. More income, same problems, different packaging. That's the key. People think the problem is their salary, but the real problem is their standards. Your standard of living rises the moment you feel even a tiny bit of relief. That relief tricks you. It tells you you're safe. It tells you you've arrived. And the moment you believe that lie, lifestyle inflation takes control. Let me make this real. You used to drink regular coffee. Now it's daily specialty coffee. You used to drive a 10-year-old car. Now you're financing a new one. You used to live within your means. Now your means are barely keeping up with your wants. The change is subtle. The change feels harmless, but the consequences are brutal. Because every small upgrade becomes your new baseline, your new normal, your new expectation of what life should feel like. And once your expectations rise, your expenses follow. Every time. Here's the truth. It's not about coffee. It's not about cars. It's not about the things. It's about the discipline. You have a choice, but most people don't choose. They drift. They drift into bigger bills. They drift into unnecessary upgrades. They drift into a lifestyle that grows faster than their income. Not because they're irresponsible, but because lifestyle inflation feels like progress. It feels like winning. It feels like finally living. And that's exactly why it ruins people. The trap is emotional. The trap is psychological. The trap is tied to identity, not numbers. You want to feel like you're doing better. You want to feel like your life is advancing. You want to feel like your effort is translating into something. And lifestyle upgrades deliver that feeling instantly. Feel good now, pay for it later. That's the trap. Let me give you a real-world example. A person earning $2,000 a month dreams of earning $3,000. They believe, I'll finally be able to save. I'll finally breathe. But when they hit $3,000, what happens? They move to a nicer apartment. They upgrade their phone. They start ordering food more often. They pick up new subscriptions. And suddenly, $3,000 feels exactly like $2,000. Same stress, same paycheck-to-paycheck cycle, same financial anxiety. Different numbers. Because the problem was never income. The problem was always lifestyle. Here's another truth. You don't need their permission to live below your means. Not your friends' approval, not your family's validation, not society's applause. You don't need permission to choose discipline over display, discipline over comfort, discipline over lifestyle creep. You have a choice, but lifestyle inflation steals that choice by making the wrong decision feel good. And let me tell you why this trap is so powerful. Lifestyle inflation doesn't ask for big decisions. It asks for little ones, little leaks, little habits, little indulgences that add up to massive consequences. It's $50 here, $100 there, a subscription you don't cancel, a service you don't really need, a convenience you mistake for necessity. Small leaks sink big ships. But those leaks feel so harmless, they feel so justified, that you ignore them until your savings vanish and your stress skyrockets. People blame emergencies, people blame bad luck, people blame the economy, but most of the time, the culprit is lifestyle inflation. Here's how you break the trap. Stop rewarding yourself with things that punish your future. Let that sink in. Most of your lifestyle upgrades are not rewards, they're penalties. Penalties disguised as progress, penalties disguised as happiness, penalties disguised as living your best life. You don't need to give up everything. You don't need to live miserably. You don't need to become a monk. But you do need to control the gap between income and lifestyle. That gap is your freedom. That gap is your safety. That gap is your wealth. Shrink it, and you shrink your future. Protect it, and you protect your future. The people who escape this trap are not the people who make the most money. They are the people who master the gap. They increase income without increasing lifestyle. They choose discipline over upgrades. They choose future peace over present impulse. Quiet choices, calm choices, intentional choices. Choices nobody sees, choices nobody claps for, choices that don't look glamorous on Instagram, choices that don't impress anyone, except your future self. And that's the key. Lifestyle inflation is the trap that steals wealth in silence. But awareness breaks the silence. Now you see the trap. Now you see the psychology. Now you understand the danger. And once you see it, you can avoid it. Which brings us to the next truth, the one thing that drives lifestyle inflation more than anything else.
Your ego is loud. Your ego is hungry. Your ego wants to be seen, admired, validated, applauded. But here's the brutal truth. Your ego is draining your bank account faster than any emergency, any crisis, any bad investment ever could. Your ego is the most expensive thing you own. Not your rent, not your bills, not your taxes. Your ego. And the reason people stay broke, stressed, and financially insecure is because they keep feeding the most destructive appetite in their life, the appetite to look successful instead of being successful. Your ego wants the world to see your progress, even if that progress isn't real. Your ego wants comfort now, even if it costs you later. Your ego wants status symbols, even if they steal your freedom. Your ego wants to be admired, even if it destroys the future your disciplined self could have built. That's the key. Ego spending is emotional. Disciplined spending is strategic. And most people choose emotion over strategy every single time. Let's make it real. You don't buy an expensive car because you need it. You buy it because you want to feel a certain way behind the wheel. You don't buy designer clothes because they last longer. You buy them because you want people to see you wearing them. You don't upgrade your phone every year because the old one stopped working. You upgrade it because you don't want to look behind. You don't take trips you can't afford because they enrich your soul. You take them because you want photos that show you're living life. This isn't logic. This isn't planning. This isn't strategy. This is ego. Pure, expensive, financially destructive ego. And your ego doesn't care about the consequences. It doesn't care about your anxiety. It doesn't care about your savings. It doesn't care that your future self will have to clean up the mess. Your ego only cares about right now attention, right now validation, right now applause. But wealth doesn't grow in right now. Wealth grows in patience. Wealth grows in silence. Wealth grows in discipline. Wealth grows in the invisible decisions you make when nobody is watching. You have a choice between ego and discipline, a choice between appearance and substance, a choice between validation and freedom. Because you can't have both, not at the same time. You can look wealthy, or you can be wealthy. You don't get to choose both. Look at the world around you. Look at the people flexing their lifestyles online. Look at the constant pressure to appear successful. Look at the culture of comparison, envy, performance. Everyone is trying to project wealth, and almost nobody is actually building it. Why? Because ego is addictive. Because ego gives you the illusion of power. Because ego convinces you that admiration is the same as achievement. But the wealthy understand a truth your ego cannot handle. Quiet money wins. Quiet money doesn't need an audience. Quiet money doesn't need applause. Quiet money doesn't ask for permission. Quiet money doesn't announce itself. Quiet money is built in the background, habit by habit, decision by decision, sacrifice by sacrifice. Let me show you how ego sabotages your finances. When you buy something to impress others, your ego gets fed, but your freedom gets starved. When you chase admiration, your ego grows, but your savings shrink. When you choose status over stability, your ego wins, but your future loses. When you prioritize how life looks over how life feels, your ego celebrates, but your bank account collapses. This is the real financial blunder millions fall for, the blunder of ego spending. You spend to protect a version of yourself you hope others believe in. You spend to maintain an image your finances cannot sustain. You spend to avoid looking less than, even if it means becoming less free. And the worst part, your ego lies to you about what you need. It says you need that upgrade, you need that new outfit, you need that new phone, you need that vacation, you need that appearance. You don't need any of it. What you need is freedom. What you need is peace. What you need is margin. What you need is discipline. You don't need their permission to pursue any of that. Let me say that again. You don't need permission. You don't need permission to live below your means. You don't need permission to drive a simple car. You don't need permission to avoid status spending. You don't need permission to step away from the performance of success. You have a choice, and every day you either choose ego or you choose future freedom. Let's talk about the example everyone knows but pretends not to understand: the luxury car trap. People finance cars not because they need them, but because they want the feeling the car gives them. They want the look, they want the reaction, they want the identity. But while they're feeding their ego, they're starving their future. A car loses value the moment you drive it, but the payment drains your financial strength every single month. For what? A moment, a look, a performance. It's not about the car, it's about the discipline. Or take another example. You upgrade to a bigger apartment, not because you need the space, but because it makes you feel like you leveled up. But that upgrade locks you into higher rent, higher utilities, higher pressure. Ego got the upgrade, you got the debt. Or the classic one, you buy new clothes not because your old ones don't work, but because you want to present yourself better. Presentation is ego, preparation is discipline. You have a choice. And once you understand how expensive ego is, you can finally see the truth. Ego looks loud, but discipline pays loud. Ego wants attention. Discipline wants freedom. Ego needs validation. Discipline needs purpose. Ego destroys wealth. Discipline creates it. Which brings us to the next step, the next chapter in this transformation. If ego is the fire, then status is the fuel that keeps it burning.
Status is a drug, a quiet, socially accepted, fully normalized drug. And like every drug, it gives you a temporary high while destroying your long-term stability. Here's the truth most people never admit. Status is one of the most expensive addictions in the world. It steals money. It steals peace. It steals discipline. It steals your ability to build a future that actually belongs to you. And worst of all, status spending is rewarded by society. People clap for you as you walk deeper into financial ruin. You get applause while your debt grows. You get compliments while your savings die. You get admiration while your future collapses. That's why status is dangerous. It feels like progress, but it functions like a trap. You have a choice, but most people don't realize a choice even exists. Let's go deeper. Status spending starts small. A nicer option, a better version, a deserved upgrade. But status doesn't stay small. Status grows. Status spreads. Status consumes. One upgrade becomes two. Two become five. Five become your entire lifestyle. You begin living a life designed not for you, but for the people watching you. You stop buying what you need and start buying what your status requires. Clothes become statements. Cars become costumes. Vacations become performances. Apartments become identity boosters. None of this builds wealth. All of this builds pressure. That's the key. People don't go broke buying necessities. People go broke buying status. And the tragedy is this: status works. It works socially. It works emotionally. It works psychologically. That's why it destroys financially. Let me show you how status becomes a silent debt machine. 1. Status changes your baseline. Once you experience a higher status lifestyle, your brain locks onto it. Suddenly, your old normal feels not enough. Your old wardrobe doesn't feel right. Your old car feels embarrassing. Your old apartment feels too modest. This isn't logic. This is ego chemistry. And once your baseline rises, your expenses rise with it. That's when the debt machine turns on. 2. Status encourages financing over saving. People finance status because they can't afford status. If you have to finance it, you weren't ready for it. But society doesn't punish you for this. It rewards you. You get the new car. You get the admiration. You get the look. But beneath that look, a monthly payment extracting your future, one installment at a time. Status gives you a moment. Debt takes years. Status spending becomes identity spending. You don't just buy things for utility. You buy things to protect the identity you've constructed. It looks good for my job. I need to present myself well. I can't show up looking cheap. I deserve this. No, you deserve freedom. But status convinces you freedom can wait. This is the blunder. People build identities they cannot financially maintain. They build lifestyles their earnings can't support. They build expectations they cannot meet without debt. They live as performers instead of participants in their own financial lives. Here's the brutal truth. Status is a liability. Discipline is an asset. Status demands money. Discipline protects money. Status creates pressure. Discipline creates peace. Status drains your future. Discipline builds it. You don't need their permission to choose discipline. You don't need their approval to step out of the performance. You don't need their validation to build quiet wealth. You have a choice. But status spending makes that choice harder by giving you something addictive: social rewards. People will praise your purchases. They will celebrate your upgrades. They will admire your lifestyle. But they will not help you pay your bills. They will not help you escape your debt. They applaud your downfall because it entertains them. They applaud your success because it reassures them. But nobody applauds discipline. Nobody applauds frugality. Nobody applauds living below your means. And that's why status spending thrives, because it is socially visible, while discipline is socially invisible. But wealth grows in the invisible places: quiet decisions, quiet habits, quiet discipline, quiet sacrifice. Quiet money wins. That's why the people who look wealthy often aren't, and the people who are wealthy rarely look it. Let me give you a real-world contrast. Person A drives a luxury car, financed, wears designer brands, has the newest phone, goes on expensive trips, looks successful, is drowning in silent debt. Person B drives a simple car, paid off, lives in a modest home, invests the difference, takes quiet vacations, looks ordinary, is financially unshakable. One lives for status, one lives for freedom. You have a choice. And here's the secret. Wealth requires you to disappoint your ego. Wealth requires you to ignore your audience. Wealth requires you to reject unnecessary upgrades. Wealth requires you to control the identity you project. Wealth requires you to sacrifice status for security. Most people won't do it. But you are not most people. You're here. You're listening. You're learning. You're waking up to the blunder. The silent debt machine loses its power the moment you stop fueling it. And now that you've seen how status destroys wealth, it's time to expose the next trap that feels even more justified.
Upgrading your life feels good. It feels responsible. It feels deserved. But here is the truth you must confront. Most upgrades are nothing but financial traps wearing the mask of self-improvement. People upgrade their life not because the upgrade is necessary, but because the upgrade feels validating. A nicer home feels like progress. A newer car feels like achievement. Higher-end products feel like maturity. More expensive habits feel like growth. But none of this is real progress. None of this is real maturity. None of this is real financial growth. These are emotional upgrades, not strategic ones. And emotional upgrades are some of the most expensive decisions you will ever make. Let's expose why. 1. Every upgrade creates a new baseline. When you upgrade your lifestyle, the upgrade doesn't stay optional. It becomes your new normal, your new standard, your new expectation. You get used to the nicer apartment. You get used to the expensive meals. You get used to the faster internet, the cleaner service, the additional subscription. The upgrade stops being a treat. It becomes a requirement. And suddenly, your life is more expensive, not because you needed more, but because you adjusted to more. That's the key. Needs rarely expand. Expectations always do. And once expectations rise, your financial freedom shrinks. This is how people trap themselves in lifestyles they can't sustain without stress. 2. Upgrades feel justified even when they're not. You tell yourself, I'm older now. I work hard. I deserve something nicer. I can't live the way I used to. It's time to elevate my lifestyle. These statements sound legitimate. They sound adult. They sound like growth. But these are not decisions based on strategy. These are decisions based on emotion. Upgrades don't require discipline. They require justification. And you're very good at justifying things that make you feel better. You call it self-care. You call it comfort. You call it enjoying life. But the truth, you're buying emotional relief, not financial progress. And every time you buy emotional relief, you push real progress further away. 3. Upgrades multiply even when income doesn't. Here's the trap. When you upgrade one area of your life, the other areas follow. A nicer apartment requires nicer furniture. Nicer furniture requires nicer decor. Nicer decor requires more cleaning and maintenance. A higher status life requires higher status habits. Once you upgrade again, and again, and again. That's how one little change becomes a lifestyle inflation avalanche. Your life becomes 10%, 20%, 30%, even 50% more expensive without your income growing at the same rate. You're not improving your life, you're increasing your dependence. You're not elevating your lifestyle, you're tightening your financial chains. You don't need their permission to break this cycle. You don't need anyone to approve your frugality. You don't need validation to choose discipline. You have a choice. And now that you understand the hidden cost of upgrading your life, you're ready to see the part everyone avoids, the part that separates people who stay stuck from people who finally break free. It's time to confront the thing you've been resisting. Discipline is not glamorous. Discipline is not exciting. Discipline is not Instagrammable. And that's exactly why most people avoid it. They avoid it until their life collapses. They avoid it until their finances choke them. They avoid it until the consequences force them to change. But here's the brutal truth. Every problem in your financial life can be traced back to a lack of discipline. Not intelligence, not opportunity, not luck. Discipline. The discipline to say no. The discipline to delay gratification. The discipline to stick to a plan. The discipline to act like your future matters more than your impulses. That's the discipline you keep avoiding. And it's the discipline that would change everything. Let's break this open. 1. Discipline is boring, and that's why it works. People chase excitement. People chase novelty. People chase the feeling of leveling up. But discipline is the opposite of that. Discipline is repetition. Discipline is consistency. Discipline choosing the same correct action every day, even when you don't feel like it. Discipline feels boring, but boring builds wealth. That's the key. Wealth is not built through dramatic moments. Wealth is built through small, repeated decisions that nobody sees and nobody praises. But you avoid that. You avoid the monotony. You avoid the routine. You avoid the structure. Because your ego wants excitement. Your emotions want stimulation. Your habits want comfort. You have a choice. And every time you choose comfort over discipline, you reinforce the version of yourself that stays stuck. 2. Discipline requires saying no, and you hate saying no. You fear it, you avoid it, you soften it, you apologize for it. But wealth is built on no. Your freedom is built on no. Your future is built on no. No to unnecessary spending. No to lifestyle upgrades. No to emotional purchases. No to ego-based decisions. No to habits that feel good but cost you long-term stability. Most people say yes because it's easier. Yes feels good. Yes feels social. Yes avoids conflict. Yes keeps you comfortable. But yes is expensive. Yes destroys budgets. Yes kills momentum. Yes keeps you broke. Your yes is costing you the life you want. When you learn to say no, your entire financial reality changes. You don't need their permission. You don't need their approval. You don't need their understanding. You need discipline. 3. Discipline is a system, not an emotion. If you rely on motivation, you will fail. If you rely on willpower, you will fail. If you rely on feeling inspired, you will fail. Motivation is a spark. Willpower is fuel. Discipline is the engine. Motivation fades. Willpower drains. Discipline carries you when nothing else can. That's the key. Discipline is not emotional. Discipline is structural. You create systems so you don't have to rely on how you feel. You automate saving so you don't decide to save. You invest on schedule so you don't choose to invest. You budget before the month begins so you don't react mid-month. You create rules so you don't negotiate with your impulses. Discipline is the architecture of wealth, but you avoid building it because it feels restrictive. Let me tell you the truth. Freedom comes from structure. Chaos comes from avoiding it. You think discipline limits you. It doesn't. It protects you. It strengthens you. It frees you from bad decisions. You have a choice. 4. Discipline feels hard at first because you are weak at first. People don't want to admit this, but it's true. Your habits have made you weak. Your impulses have made you weak. Your refusal to confront discomfort has made you weak. Discipline exposes your weakness. That's why you avoid it.
You don't want to see the truth. You don't want to face the parts of yourself that lack control. You don't want to confront the ways you've betrayed your own future. So you avoid discipline to avoid accountability. But weakness is not permanent. Weakness becomes strength through repetition. Saying no becomes easier. Saving becomes effortless. Staying consistent becomes automatic. Resisting temptation becomes natural. Discipline becomes identity. But first, you must confront the ugly truth. It's not about desire, it's about discipline. Desire will not save you. Discipline will. Desire burns out. Discipline compounds. Desire feels good. Discipline produces good. Desire is emotional. Discipline is transformational. 5. Discipline pays you back. Comfort bills you forever. This is the financial equation most people never solve. Comfort charges interest. Discipline pays dividends. When you choose comfort, you choose future stress. You choose future pressure. You choose future limitations. When you choose discipline, you choose future freedom. You choose future stability. You choose future options. Comfort gives you enjoyment now and punishment later. Discipline gives you effort now and reward later. You have a choice. Every time you resist discipline, you delay your independence. You delay your peace. You delay your potential. Every time you embrace discipline, you accelerate your future. That's why the wealthy appear calm. That's why they appear steady. That's why they appear unbothered. They built discipline when nobody was watching. They built systems that carry them through chaos. They built habits that protect their financial strength. Wealth is not loud. Wealth is not impulsive. Wealth is not emotional. Wealth is disciplined, quietly disciplined. 6. Discipline is the cure for the blunder you keep falling for. The blunder of lifestyle inflation? Discipline cures it. The blunder of ego spending? Discipline cures it. The blunder of status addiction? Discipline cures it. Every financial mistake, every destructive habit, every emotional impulse, they all crumble under discipline. Discipline is the antidote. Discipline is the shield. Discipline is the weapon. You don't need to be smarter. You don't need to be luckier. You don't need more opportunities. You need discipline. That's the key. And now that you understand what discipline truly is, not punishment, not restriction, but protection, you're ready to understand how wealthy people live without falling into the traps that keep others broke. The next chapter exposes a truth that will shock you.
Most people imagine millionaires as loud, flashy, over-the-top symbols of wealth. But that image is a lie, a distraction, a marketing illusion created by the people who aren't wealthy but desperately want to look like they are. Real millionaires, the quiet ones, the steady ones, the self-made ones, live very differently. So differently that you often walk past them without noticing. You work with them without realizing. You sit next to them in public and never suspect a thing. Because true wealth doesn't want attention. True wealth doesn't need applause. True wealth doesn't announce itself. Quiet money wins. Every time, in every generation, in every economy. You have a choice. Look wealthy or be wealthy, but you cannot do both. Let's expose what real millionaires actually do, the habits, the identities, the patterns you never see because they operate silently while everyone else performs loudly. 1. Millionaires master boring consistency. You want excitement. Millionaires want consistency. You want something new. Millionaires want something repeatable. You want the feeling of progress. Millionaires want the math of progress. That's the key.
What looks boring to you is freedom to them. What feels routine to you is power to them. What seems too simple to you is exactly why their wealth compounds quietly year after year. They automate investing. They avoid lifestyle inflation. They save aggressively. They avoid unnecessary debt like it's poison. They choose reliability over stimulation. You have a choice, but most people choose stimulation, the little highs, the emotional wins, the "I deserve this" purchases. Millionaires choose systems, and systems don't care about mood, motivation, or ego. Systems produce results. 2. Millionaires buy based on value, not status. You buy to impress. They buy to function. You buy to elevate your image. They buy to elevate their stability. You buy emotionally. They buy strategically. Let's make this clear. The millionaire driving a Toyota didn't choose it because he can't afford a luxury car. He chose it because he doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. You don't need their permission to adopt this mindset. Stop buying for the world. Start buying for your future. Real millionaires understand this. Status drains wealth. Value builds it. Their purchases aren't meant to signal success. Their purchases are meant to protect success. 3. Millionaires don't upgrade unless it makes them stronger. This is where you fail and they win. Most people upgrade because something looks old or feels outdated. Millionaires only upgrade when the upgrade has a return, a purpose, a measurable benefit. If it doesn't make them healthier, safer, more productive, or more financially efficient, they don't upgrade, period. They don't chase the newest phone. They don't chase the trendiest fashion. They don't chase cars that depreciate the moment you drive them. They don't confuse new with better. They don't confuse better with necessary. They don't confuse necessary with status. You have a choice, and every upgrade you avoid is a future blessing you're creating for yourself. 4. Millionaires protect their time like it's their wealth. Broke people protect their comfort. Millionaires protect their time. Your time is your most valuable asset, but you treat it like you have unlimited amounts of it. Millionaires don't. Millionaires don't waste time arguing. They don't waste time proving themselves. They don't waste time maintaining an image. They don't waste time chasing admiration. They invest time where it multiplies, learning, building, planning, executing, strengthening. And because they protect their time rewards them. That is the quiet foundation of wealth. 5. Millionaires don't make emotional financial decisions. You buy when you're sad. You buy when you're bored. You buy when you're stressed. You buy when you're comparing your life to someone else's. Emotional spending is the tax you pay for not having discipline. Millionaires know this. They refuse to let emotions control money. They use rules, not moods. They use plans, not impulses. They build boundaries, not excuses. This is why their wealth grows steadily, not explosively, not dramatically, but reliably. Reliability is the secret weapon of the wealthy. 6. Millionaires define themselves by behaviors, not appearances. This is the psychological difference. You define success by what people see. Millionaires define success by what people don't see. People see the old car, the modest home, the simple clothes, the lack of flashy purchases. What they don't see, the investment accounts, the savings, the patience, the discipline, and the compound interest building quietly in the background. Wealth you don't see is the wealth that lasts. Quiet money wins. Loud money disappears. Every fraudulent millionaire on Instagram eventually collapses. Every quiet millionaire in real life eventually thrives. You have a choice. 7. Millionaires ignore social pressure entirely. They don't care what neighbors think. They don't care what coworkers think. They don't care what strangers think. They don't care about keeping up. They don't perform for approval. They don't compete for appearances. They don't chase validation, because validation is expensive. Approval is expensive. Status is expensive. Millionaires don't want expensive. They want freedom, and freedom is cheap to maintain, but expensive to achieve. That's why they protect it with discipline. 8. Millionaires play the long game you keep avoiding. The broke mindset says now, today, this moment, this feeling. The millionaire mindset says later, tomorrow, years from now, compounding. You live for the present, they build for the future. You upgrade today, they strategize today. You chase the feeling, they chase the outcome. And because they choose the long game, they win the long game. 9. The millionaire life is invisible until it isn't. You don't see the years of discipline. You don't see the sacrifices. You don't see the restraint. You don't see the moments they walked away from temptation. But one day, you see the retirement. You see the investments. You see the stability. You see the confidence. You see the independence. The lifestyle appears suddenly, but it was built quietly. That's how wealth works. Quiet first, loud later. You have a choice. And now, the transition. You now understand how wealthy people live in ways you never notice. You understand their behavior, their psychology, their systems. But there is something deeper you must confront, something internal, something dangerous, your identity. Because once the traps become identity-level habits, breaking free becomes harder. That's what we study next.
There is a moment in every person's financial life when a harmful habit stops being something you do and becomes who you are. A spender, an upgrader, a lifestyle chaser, a status seeker, a financial procrastinator, a deal-with-it-later person. This is where the real danger begins. Because once a behavior becomes an identity, you don't question it anymore. You don't confront it anymore. You don't resist it anymore. You defend it. You justify it. You protect it like it's a part of you. That's the loop. The loop that keeps you stuck. The loop that keeps you broke. The loop that convinces you you're just like this, as if you have no choice. But you do. You have a choice, and today is the day you break the loop before it becomes permanent. Let's expose how destructive financial loops form and how you break them before they harden into your identity. 1. The loop begins with a lie you tell yourself. Every loop has an origin, and almost always the origin is a lie. I deserve this. I'll start saving next month. One upgrade won't hurt. I don't make enough to worry about budgeting. Everyone my age spends like this. I'll figure it out later. These lies feel harmless, but they are psychological anchors. They build the mental conditions that allow financial dysfunction to grow. You're not broke because you spend. You're broke because you justify the spending. You're not stuck because of your income. You're stuck because of your excuses. That's the key. The moment you believe the lie, the loop begins. 2. The loop repeats until it feels normal. This is where most people lose control. If you repeat a behavior long enough, your brain accepts it as normal. Overspending becomes normal. Impulse buying becomes normal. Ignoring your bank balance becomes normal. Living without savings becomes normal. Upgrading without thinking becomes normal. And once it's normal, it no longer feels like a choice. It feels like you. But it isn't you. It's a loop that you've repeated so many times you forgot it wasn't your true identity. That's why breaking the loop feels like losing yourself. You're not losing yourself. You're losing the version of you that kept you trapped. You have a choice.
3. The loop protects your weakness and attacks your discipline. Financial loops survive by feeding off your emotional patterns, your desire for comfort, your fear of missing out, your need for approval, your resistance to discomfort, your avoidance of responsibility. Loops exploit these weaknesses. When you try to stop, the loop whispers, "You've been good enough, buy it. You only live once. You're too stressed not to treat yourself. You can start being disciplined tomorrow. You're not the type of person who budgets." This is not your voice. This is the loop defending itself. The loop wants to survive. Your discipline threatens its survival. So it convinces you that change is too hard, too limiting, too painful, too unrealistic. But the truth is, the only pain is staying where you are. 4. Your identity can trap you or free you. People underestimate this point. Your financial life always matches your identity. If you see yourself as bad with money, as someone who can't save, as someone who always overspends, you will behave accordingly. Identity drives behavior. Behavior reinforces identity. That is the loop. But the loop works both ways. If you begin to see yourself as a disciplined person, as a future-focused person, as a wealth builder, as someone who lives below their means, as someone who prioritizes freedom, your behaviors begin to shift automatically. This is deeper than motivation. This is identity engineering. You don't need their permission to change your identity. You don't need approval to become someone new. You don't need validation to break the pattern. You have a choice. 5. The loop breaks through story, not intention. The story you tell yourself about yourself is the foundation of your financial behavior. Here are the stories that destroy people. I'm just not disciplined. I'm just not good with money. I always mess up. I can't stick to budgets. I don't make enough to save. This is just who I am. These stories are lies, and your loop uses them to protect itself. You break the loop by breaking the story. Replace "I'm bad with money" with "I'm learning to master money." Replace "I can't save" with "I can save small and scale up." Replace "I don't make enough" with "I'm building the habits that wealthy people use." Replace "This is just who I am" with "This is who I'm becoming." Identity shifts are quiet at first, but they are powerful. That's the key. 6. Loops break through action, not intention. Thinking about changing doesn't break the loop. Wanting to change doesn't break the loop. Hoping to change doesn't break the loop. Only action breaks loops. Small action, daily action, repeated action. A budget breaks the loop. Tracking your expenses breaks the loop. Saying no breaks the loop. Canceling unnecessary subscriptions breaks the loop. Living below your means breaks the loop. Every disciplined action chips away at the identity that trapped you. You have a choice. 7. When you break the loop, you rebuild your life. The moment you disrupt your pattern, everything changes. You start saving. You stop panicking. You begin controlling your spending. You reclaim your future. You build momentum. You strengthen your identity. Breaking the loop gives you something you haven't felt in years: power, control, stability, direction, confidence. Not because your money changed overnight, but because you did. And once you break one loop, you realize you can break them all. The transition. You now understand how loops become identities and how identities shape your entire financial reality. But there's one more trap, the trap that destroys even disciplined people. External noise. The pressure, opinions, expectations, and judgments of the world around you. If you don't control the noise will control your decisions. And that's where we go next.
Noise is everywhere. Loud opinions, loud pressure, loud expectations, loud comparisons, loud voices telling you who to be, what to buy, how to live, and how success should look. And if you don't silence that noise will silence your discipline. Here's the truth you've been avoiding. Most of your financial mistakes didn't come from what you wanted. They came from what you thought others expected. You didn't buy the newest phone for yourself. You bought it because you didn't want to seem behind. You didn't upgrade your car because you needed it. You upgraded because you cared how people would judge the old one. You didn't move into a nicer apartment out of necessity. You moved because you wanted to match your age or look successful. This isn't personal preference. This is noise. Noise controlling your life, quietly, invisibly, relentlessly. If you want financial freedom, you must learn to silence the noise. Let's break down exactly how noise sabotages your money and how to build a mental shield strong enough to block it. 1. Noise makes you compare instead of think. Comparison is the most toxic noise of all, because comparison turns your life into a competition you never agreed to join. You compare your clothes, you compare your car, you compare your phone, you compare your vacations, you compare your lifestyle. And here's the brutal truth. Every comparison pushes you toward a financial decision you didn't need to make. Comparison convinces you that your life is behind. Comparison convinces you that you should be doing more. Comparison convinces you that you're not enough yet. But comparison is a lie. You're comparing your reality to someone else's highlight reel. You're comparing your discipline to someone else's debt. You're comparing your journey to someone else's performance. You have a choice. You can react to comparison, or you can replace comparison with clarity. Ask yourself, does this purchase make my life better? Does this help my future? Does this align with my goals? Noise wants you to copy. Discipline wants you to think. 2. Noise creates pressure to perform, not progress. Let me make this painfully clear. Most people aren't living, they're performing. They perform success. They perform stability. They perform confidence. They perform happiness. They perform wealth they don't actually have. And you feel pressured to perform too. That pressure comes from friends, co-workers, social media, culture, and family. Everyone has an opinion about what your life should look like. Noise says you should own this by your age. You should upgrade by now. You should have what others have. You should keep up. But none of this is real. None of this is required. None of this is connected to your actual financial life. You don't need their permission to stop performing. You don't need their approval to choose substance over appearance. You don't need their validation to live within your means. You have a choice. The world wants performance. Your future needs progress. 3. Noise manipulates your emotions into spending. Marketers know this. Brands know this. Influencers know this. Your ego knows this. Noise uses emotions to manipulate your wallet. It tells you, you deserve this. You've had a long week. Everyone has one of these. Treat yourself. You don't want to look cheap. These are not thoughts. These are emotional triggers engineered to destroy your discipline. When you spend emotionally, you're not making decisions. You're acting out of instinct.
Here's the truth. Noise makes you spend to solve feelings, not problems. But feelings return. Debt stays. Feelings pass. Financial decisions echo for years. You don't need to eliminate emotion. You just need to stop letting emotions run your financial life. That's the key. 4. Noise makes you fear judgment instead of regret. You fear being judged for not buying something more than you fear the regret of the purchase later. That is backwards. That is destructive. That is the psychology keeping you stuck. Judgment lasts seconds. Regret lasts years. People will judge you for driving a simple car. Let them. People will judge you for living below your means. Let them. People will judge you for saying no to outings you can't afford. Let them. Nobody else pays your bills. Nobody else builds your savings. Nobody else suffers your debt. Nobody else rescues your future. You have a choice. Fear of judgment should never outweigh fear of regret. 5. Noise tricks you into believing you're behind. This is the deadliest psychological trap. Noise constantly tells you you're late, you're behind, you should have more by now, you're not successful enough. But behind compared to who? Behind compared to what? Everyone has a different income, different responsibilities, different life circumstances, different starting points, different goals. The idea of being behind is manufactured. It's noise used to pressure you into spending you can't sustain. You're not behind. You're becoming disciplined. You're rebuilding. You're refocusing. You're correcting course. The people who look ahead financially are often drowning in debt behind the scenes. Quiet money wins. Loud money suffers. 6. Noise can only control you if you let it in. Here's where transformation begins. You must build internal silence. You must build mental distance. You must build the strength to ignore everything that does not serve your future. Silence the opinions. Silence the expectations. Silence the comparisons. Silence the pressure. Silence the noise. That doesn't mean you isolate yourself. It means you protect yourself. Noise is an invitation. You don't have to accept it. You have a choice. 7. How to build a noise-proof mindset. You quiet the noise with structure. Create rules. Follow them. Protect them. Rules like, I don't buy anything I can't pay for twice. I only upgrade when there's a measurable return. I save before I spend. I invest before lifestyle. I choose freedom over appearance. I will not compare my progress to someone else's performance. Rules silence noise. Rules anchor your behavior. Rules protect your future. Because once you choose discipline, noise loses its power. The transition. You now understand how external noise manipulates your decisions, controls your spending, and shapes your identity without your permission. But there's one more truth you must learn, the truth that separates the people who break free from those who repeat the same cycle forever. Your future depends on what you tolerate. That's where we go next.
There comes a moment in everyone's life when progress no longer depends on what they start doing, but on what they finally refuse to tolerate. Your future is not built by your goals. Your future is built by your standards. And your standards are defined by what you stop accepting from the world, from others, and most importantly, from yourself. This is the final truth. Your life changes the moment your tolerance ends, not before,
never before. You cannot create a wealthy future while tolerating habits that destroy wealth. You cannot create financial freedom while tolerating decisions that keep you trapped. You cannot become disciplined while tolerating impulses that sabotage you. Your future is not waiting for motivation. Your future is waiting for intolerance, a line in the sand, a decision, a standard that says, I'm done. I'm not living like this anymore. Not one more day, not one more excuse. That is the moment your identity shifts. That is the moment wealth begins. Let's break down what you must stop tolerating and how doing so transforms everything. 1. Stop tolerating the stories that keep you small. Every person who stays financially stuck is held there by a story they think is true. I'm bad with money. I can't save. I don't make enough. I'm too far behind. I'll start when I earn more. This is just who I am. These aren't truths. These are cages, mental prisons, loops you repeat because they feel familiar. You have a choice, and the first choice is to stop tolerating the lies your past has taught you. You are not bad with money. You were undisciplined. You can save. You just didn't have boundaries. You do make enough. You were spending emotionally. You were not behind. You were distracted. You can change. You just never committed before. When you stop tolerating your old story, you create space for a new identity. That's the key. 2. Stop tolerating emotional spending. Let's be brutally honest. You're not buying things. You're buying feelings. Feelings of relief. Feelings of validation. Feelings of comfort. Feelings of escape. But feelings don't build wealth. Discipline does. Every emotional purchase steals from your future. Every impulse reinforces your weakness. Every unnecessary upgrade delays your freedom. Stop tolerating it. Stop tolerating the financial chaos that comes from emotional decisions. You don't need their permission to say no to your impulses. You don't need validation to stay disciplined. You don't need comfort. You need clarity. You have a choice. 3. Stop tolerating the people who pull you backward. Some people are not toxic. They're expensive, financially expensive, emotionally expensive, psychologically expensive. They pressure you to spend. They mock your discipline. They encourage your old habits. They validate your worst impulses. They drain the momentum you fought to build. You don't need approval from people who aren't contributing to your future. You don't need permission from people who are stuck. You don't need acceptance from people who fear your growth. Stop tolerating external sabotage. Your future requires new boundaries, strong ones. 4. Stop tolerating a life that doesn't match your potential. This is the hardest truth to swallow. You know you're capable of more. You know your future could be bigger. You know your habits could be stronger. You know your decisions could be better. You've always known, but you tolerated less. For too long, for years, maybe for decades. You tolerated comfort. You tolerated excuses. You tolerated inconsistency. You tolerated the version of you that played small. But that version of you is done now. You don't need it anymore. You don't owe it anything. You're ready to step into the future version of yourself, the disciplined version, the focused version, the financially unshakable version. Your potential is waiting behind the door of intolerance. Stop tolerating the habits that block it. Stop tolerating a future controlled by fear. Fear of judgment, fear of missing out, fear of failure, fear of discomfort, fear of discipline. Fear has been steering your financial decisions for years, but fear is not a strategy. Fear is not a plan. Fear is not a foundation. Fear shrinks your life. Discipline expands it. You have a choice. You can tolerate fear, or you can tolerate growth, but you cannot tolerate both. When you stop tolerating the old you, everything changes. This chapter is the turning point, the moment your identity shifts, the moment your future begins. Because once you stop tolerating your past behaviors, you start rejecting them automatically. The wasteful spending, the impulsive decisions, the status chasing, the unnecessary upgrades, the emotional purchases, the financial denial, the excuses, the loops, the noise. They all begin to fade the moment your standards rise. Your new identity emerges from what you refuse to allow anymore. Your new life begins when your tolerance ends. That's the key. Listen carefully, because everything you learned in this book, every warning, every truth, every strategy, every tough love correction, means nothing unless you act now. Your financial future is not built by wishful thinking. It's built by decisions, discipline, standards, identity, silence, boundaries, and the refusal to tolerate the life that kept you stuck. You now understand the traps: lifestyle inflation, ego spending, status addiction, emotional purchasing, identity loops, social noise, undisciplined habits. And you now understand the antidote: quiet discipline, quiet consistency, quiet wealth. You have a choice. Not tomorrow, not later, not when life calms down. Now. You can keep living for the world, or you can start building for yourself. You can keep chasing validation, or you can start building freedom. You can keep feeding your ego, or you can start feeding your future. Nothing changes until you change. Nothing improves until you improve. Nothing gets easier until you get stronger. This is your moment, your line in the sand, your shift in identity, your new financial standard. Starting today, you stop buying for approval. You stop upgrading for status. You stop spending emotionally. You stop tolerating chaos. You stop performing wealth. You stop accepting the life that kept you small. And you start building quietly, relentlessly, intentionally, consistently. Because the world doesn't need to see your progress. Your future does. So here is your final challenge. For the next 90 days, live with ruthless discipline. Track every dollar, reject every unnecessary upgrade, silence every voice that pushes you toward chaos, and choose freedom over ego every time. Do this, and your life will change permanently. Your peace will grow, your confidence will return, your finances will stabilize, your identity will strengthen, your discipline will compound, your future will open. Quiet money wins. Quiet habits win. Quiet discipline wins. Now, go prove it. If this message hit you deeply, subscribe, share this with someone who needs it, and step into the financial life you were meant to build. Your new chapter begins the moment you decide it does, and that moment is now.